I've been a Cassandra for 4 or 5 years now, so I guess I'll just keep raising the alarm about patterns that I see. And I really want to talk about the Senate. I want to talk about Dick Durbin. And really, I was looking at Dick Durbin because I believe he's the linchpin between hiding the Epstein files and hiding the corruption in Illinois. I feel these cases will converge through him, and that we're talking about how many institutions in America were corrupted by efforts from Putin, Netanyahu, perhaps Cuban nationalists, lots of different bad, and just straight up criminals. Mostly, the Trumps are mostly just mobsters, right? People just want to steal. But in any case, they've infiltrated the security of the country we live in. And the Senate is an institution. The Senate Judiciary Committee is an institution. And Dick Durbin has sat on that committee since 2003. He was already on my mind when news came up about a certain Senator, Kristen Gillibrand. And she doesn't sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, but I always think of her when I think of another senator, Al Franken, who did sit on the Judiciary Committee. And Al Franken left in 2018. And I think it's interesting because one of the reasons progressives liked Franken is because he was nonpartisan, very nonpartisan, unlike Gillibrand and Durbin, who are both, I think, second-generation state party partisans, very Team Blue, no matter what. Hide bodies for Team Blue, in my experience, because I'm one of the bodies. So I was resentful of Gillibrand because I never felt Franken deserved it. The Me Too, I didn't think what he did was a big deal. I didn't think he should have stopped being a senator. But now I wonder if the Me Too was kind of a ruse to push Franken out, because maybe we needed a progressive voice. Maybe if there had been a progressive voice on the Senate Judiciary Committee in 2018, the Epstein case wouldn't have been hidden. I don't personally think that Merrick Garland is some virgin who came to federal government and just somehow wasn't aware of a case that has really obvious national security implications. Why would they not have been bringing that to the Attorney General? So Merrick Garland had all the information that we've gotten from the releases forced by Congress, the People's House. Merrick Garland was forced to release those things after his term was done. He didn't do it while he was there. And people will say, again, like, it's not like he was a virgin. He was picked by Dick Durbin. There are ways for the deep state to leak things. There were ways for James Comey to leak things. There are ways for people to get things out there. And I think it's very clear that Merrick Garland made choices to make sure things didn't get out there that revealed Epstein co-conspirators, and things didn't get out there that revealed the corruption in Illinois, and things didn't get out there to reveal other vulnerabilities in national security caused by forces, bad actors acting on our government through the Epstein files and other issues. I honestly don't know when my divorce case got tied up in the other federal corruption cases in Chicago. I know Dorothy Brown and David Pasulka, I think Dorothy Brown was under investigation before my divorce started. I have no idea if Pasulka was under investigation before he was reported for raping mothers. I just know in 2016, that was the first time I said in an Illinois court that I knew my ex-husband, Peter Matt, to be a financial criminal, that I knew that he had millions of dollars in other countries that he doesn't report to the IRS. So in retrospect, I don't know if my case was then because of federal and international tax crimes giving an entry for federal prosecutors. I don't know if people involved in my case were building a case starting in 2016 or not. But I know they were looking at other people, and I know Peter's attorney, Christopher Mormon, is definitely building a case for federal prosecutors. But then in 2017, John Lausch was appointed as the federal prosecutor in the Northern District by Trump. And in 2017, I referenced Pasulka. He was a guardian ad litem who forced mothers to have sex with him in exchange for child custody. And he was protected by everyone in the Chicago court system because they didn't want to embarrass him. But then 3 years later, the case broke. But in 2017, it was reported to the bar and to presiding Judge Grace Stickler. And then in 2018, Franken was pushed off the Senate Judiciary Committee, pushed out of the Senate. And also in 2018, the Epstein investigation begins because of a Miami Herald story. It wasn't because of any choice by anyone in any administration. 2019, after Epstein breaks, Bill Barr becomes Attorney General. 2019, Epstein dies. 2020, press and ABA hide massive sexual harassment scandal in Illinois courts. That's when, so for example, in August of 2020, 28 female attorneys wrote to presiding Judge Grace Stickler to complain of rampant sexual abuse in the Circuit Court of Cook County. And these are all Chicago Democrats, protected by Chicago Democrats. And that story has been hidden. If you search the terms I just gave you, you won't find it. I used the Wayback Machine to pull the ABC story that originally aired, and it was the only story. It never made the national news, and the American Bar Association Journal, which is printed in Chicago, never reported that 28 of its members were complaining of male judges raping them at work. So that story got buried. David Pasulka got buried. You never heard about it unless you're a few people in Chicago. And then in 2021, Merrick Garland is sworn in as the new Attorney General. That was when I discovered that a lot of corruption had happened involving my ex-husband and people in this court where mothers are getting raped. I discovered a lot of corruption in this court where mothers are getting raped, and which tied to my ex-husband's financial crimes. And so I made 6 attempts to report to John Lausch's Northern District, and I couldn't go to the office because of COVID. Nobody returned my calls. So then I went to the IRS, and IRS believed my report and issued me whistleblower numbers. And all of my reports were also made to head counsel at Jefferies, the investment bank where I worked, and he agreed that the crimes would get my ex-husband arrested. Still hasn't happened though, because it would mean exposing the corruption in the Democratic Party. So in January of 2022, Teresa Wigland at the IRS Criminal Investigators Unit issued me 2 whistleblower numbers. So I think people are going to get arrested. I have a lot of moxie. I talk about being a whistleblower, thinking I'll be protected, and I'm not. My life gets destroyed. And then in 2023, John Lausch resigned, and he's now working in private practice in Chicago, where he had enough evidence to indict all of the Illinois judiciary. So I imagine when he appears before Illinois judges, he gets really good rulings. So he's probably worth his weight in gold. And Merrick Garland is also in private practice. What's interesting is Dick Durbin picked Merrick Garland to be the original Supreme Court nominee. And obviously that didn't work out. And then as Attorney General, Merrick Garland was the only law enforcement officer Garland was the only one who really could have looked at Durbin as a law enforcement officer if Durbin is tied to Epstein and bad actors who've compromised our government. And now Merrick Garland is in private practice, where he sells access to the committees that Dick Durbin and others sit on.